Hey guys, it's Kari from the Alfred Homestead, and today I wanted to share what's been going on here the last few days. It is October, it is fall 100% here. The leaves are all falling, everything is slowing down here, but we still have lots to do with the animals here. And on this day, we needed to go ahead and integrate our two flocks of chickens. So we've had bad luck with this. Last year, we lost quite a few young chickens because we just integrated them too soon to the older and bigger chickens. So this time, these chickens, they were about 17 or 18 of them. We incubated those and those hatched in June. So they're old enough now, they're big enough to sort of get through the pecking order that will ensue. And we ended up putting their tractor right next to the regular chicken tractor and letting them kind of just sit in their tractor without being literally in that space with the other chickens, just being next to them, but not enough to start the pecking order so that they could kind of get warmed up a little bit to each other. And I will say this time it went a lot smoother, so I'm happy how that went. There, of course, the hens are going to fight amongst themselves. The roosters are going to, I think we had 4 or 5 roosters that were integrated into the other flock, which only had 2 roosters. But all in all, I'd say it was a success and nobody got harmed, so that was good. The next day I came out and checked on them and everybody seemed fine. They're still a little bit segregated, kind of, skittish around each other here and there, but for the most part, it went really well. So everybody's just kind of getting used to one another, and that's just how it goes when you have animals. You can never just throw 2 animals together, it seems. They always gotta get a little bit of time to warm up to each other. So everybody's just hanging out. And so I think total we had about 20 in the previous flock, and we added about another 15 to 20. So we've got quite a few, but we do have some roosters that are going to have to be taken out eventually. And we did add some of the nesting boxes in their coop because now we have quite a few layers. But it seems like they like laying in that compost ring. We have found numerous eggs in the compost ring, so it must be the dried leaves that they like because they don't like hay. My husband will put hay in their nesting boxes and they just scoop it right out. So that's kind of funny. So you can see my husband's now taking this pullet tractor out since those chickens are now out of there, and we will go ahead and use those for future pullets. I'm not sure when we are going to start our next batch of incubating chicken eggs, but I'm sure that tractor will go to use either with the rabbits or with the chickens pretty soon. So getting that out is always it's always fun to try and not get any of the chickens to run out. So next on the list was to take care of this black soldier fly mess. They were just overcrowding this little box that we've got set up for them. And we really needed to just go ahead and empty some of those contents out. You could see that's completely overfilled with black soldier fly larvae, and even the buckets are full to the brim with their liquid. And that's that DIY fertilizer. If you guys haven't seen that video of how we collect this and use this as a liquid fertilizer in the garden, go check that video out. So what I decided to do was, even though there were still some things in the box that needed to be composted down, I went ahead and shoveled about 50% of that box into these buckets, just whatever buckets I had lying around at the time. And we are going to go ahead and throw that into the compost ring that the chickens are using right now. So that'll serve as a double purpose. So the compost, the rest of the apples and scraps that are in there and not fully composted will just transfer to another compost bin, but at the same time, the chickens will be eating the larvae. That is their special treat. That's very good protein for them. It's organic and it's right here available. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. So it'll serve a dual purpose, which will be really nice. It's always good to have dual purpose things on the homestead like this. But you can see this stuff is so full. It was hard for me to even shovel it out. It was so thick with the larvae and the juices. It was getting clogged. So I just need to keep up with this more. Eventually, we will have a bigger and better setup for these black soldier flies. This was our first year that we had such a massive overload of them. So apparently they have loved the apples that we have been giving them, which we still have plenty of. We still have a 55-gallon drum full of apples that we bought 2 months ago now. So they still have plenty of food, and I'm hoping they'll still be pretty active even though the weather is getting cooler here. But as of right now, they're still pretty content with the weather. We're still in the mid 70s for a few days, but in 4 or 5 days, it's going to get down into the 60s. So we'll see how active they are then. And we're also going to go ahead and strain all of that from the liquid. So that way we can get all of the bugs for the chickens, and that will all go to use. All of that liquid fertilizer will be used in the next week or two between the orchard that we've got going and the fall garden that's going. I mean, it'll go on everything in the garden. This stuff is very useful, very nutritious, and all of the plants will benefit from this. Okay, so now you can see all the chickens know exactly what they're getting. They know this special treat. And we've got all of the bugs in that mesh bag, but we've also got like the compost slash bug mixture that we just went ahead and threw into the compost ring. We are still adding to this compost ring, you guys. It's so crazy how much this little ring, it seems little, but it can hold so much. And of course, you can see those eggs there. What did I say? They got into a habit of laying in the compost ring, which is kind of annoying because sometimes you'll miss it if it gets too deep into the compost, and then you know you'll never see it again. So we have to be careful with that. I wonder if anyone else has had that same issue, but in any case, the birds are loving their special treat, and they'll get more. Of course, we're not gonna go skimpy on them. They'll get more in a few days after we have fed the black soldier flies with more apples. They'll be just as full as before. So next on my list, I wanted to propagate some off of this lavender bush. This thing is so massive. Just a year ago, it was like the size of my hand, and now it's almost overgrowing the rosemary even. That's massive. And I noticed that there was a lot of the soft, tender growth at the tops of those leaves. And those are really perfect for propagating. Lavender is kind of one of those things that you don't really want to try and grow from seeds. It's just kind of easier to propagate from. So as long as you have those really like tender new growth on the top of the plant, those are the best ones for propagating off of. You don't want that thick woody part. That's going to be a lot harder to grow roots off of. So the nice tender, thin, springy growth off the very top is generally what you want. So I have not tried propagating lavender before. So this one has done fantastic. I believe this is a French lavender, and everything that I've read said it's so hard to grow on the East Coast, but this has done fabulous in our area. So I definitely want to propagate him. And this was some propagated rosemary. I have two little guys in, well, one's a big one. I got two in there. And I am going to go ahead and propagate some more, again with the same methodology, just taking the tender stalks. You don't want any woody bits or pieces. And again, this rosemary has done pretty good here. The only thing that I say is an issue is we have poor drainage where he's at. So I've had to cut off quite a bit of his growth this past year in order to help him along. So we're going to have to keep adding organic matter to our soil to help facilitate the drainage. We're in zone 7B, so it's not that we get really cold and flooded here necessarily, but we have a lot of clay in our soil, so that tends to be the biggest issue that we have. So the more plants, the better, because if I happen to have them die off because of poor drainage or just poor soil in general, then at least I have multiple plants. So I have the trimmings. I took about 3 to 4 inch sections off, and I'm going to strip the bottom half of its leaves. So you really only need like one set of leaves. You don't want to keep too many, and then the plant struggles to try and take root. So I just keep generally the top section of leaves, and I trim off all the other ones. So I ended up with about a 2 to 3 inch section. I'm putting these in coconut coir. That's what that medium is. And I am actually putting them in trays. And I'm going to put them inside under the grow lights and the heating mat. So I've never done this before. I've always just kind of left them outside. And if they take, they take. If not, then they weren't strong enough, right? But I really wanted to try this method to see if I would get a better success rate. And those are the rosemary clippings. So hopefully this method works better. And you could see I had a couple of transplants that I hadn't gotten to yet. Who knows if these are going to make it. This is some black kale. It should be pretty hardy here for our zone. We're in zone 7B again, so I'm hoping that these will kind of make it through the winter and overwinter. Depends on how cold we get here. We generally don't get under 30 degrees here, so I'm hoping that they'll make it. These kohlrabi I'm excited about. They're almost ready to harvest. This one is ready, but I wanted to just wait until I had at least one other kohlrabi to harvest with him. So that's exciting. And the last bits of the summer garden, I've got a couple of bell pepper plants that still have plenty of fruit on them. I am going to leave these guys as well as some of the other tomato plants for just a couple more days before I harvest everything off of them. We're still going to be in the 70s for another 4 or 5 days. So I want to give them as much time as possible to get just a little bit bigger. And these are the tomatoes. We've got a lot of cherry tomatoes that are still growing, a ton of tomatoes. And I have no issues with the tomatoes right now because all of the hornworms aren't even around anymore. I love this part of the season where we can still get tomatoes but not have to fight off the hornworms now. So I will pull all of these tomatoes off right before we get down into the 30s. So, and even the cucumbers, this little cucumber, you guys, that's obviously not going to make it. This will die as soon as it gets below 40, but I just thought that was pretty neat that they still came up. All right, you guys, that's what's been going on around here. I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you guys next week.